Hello, good afternoon, everyone. We'll be beginning shortly, so I'd just like to invite everyone to take their seats. If you haven't already, I'd like to invite you to turn your phones to silent mode and please get comfortable, help yourself to some coffee or tea outside at the door over here. And as we're waiting for everyone to settle in a little bit, we have a few housekeeping matters to go through at the start before we start our event proper. So for those of you who drove here, please approach our staff outside at the registration table so that we can validate your parking. I'm Shireen Keshwani. I am Chief of Staff here at Eco Business, and I'm delighted to be your host and MC for today. So we have a QR code that we'd like to invite you all to scan. So this is essentially just to get an understanding of your commute details, how you came here today. And this goes into our carbon emissions reporting here at Eco Business as part of our carbon neutrality pledge. We'd also be grateful if you could remember to return your lanyards at the boxes located at the entrance, with our staff at the entrance, because we do reuse these lanyards for all our events. So the lanyards that you're wearing around your neck have really traveled around the Southeast Asian region. With that, now that everything is settled down and everyone has scanned the QR code, I'd like to formally welcome everyone here today. So distinguished guests, a very good welcome to you all here today. And thank you for joining us here at Unlocking Capital for Sustainability, Green Horizons, Charting Thailand's Sustainable Finance Journey. I'd like to give a bit of background on UCFS, as we call it here. So Unlocking Capital for Sustainability is Eco Business's flagship sustainable finance and business event hosted in partnership with United Nations Environment Programme Finance Initiative, along with a wide variety of other partners across Asia. It's the region's premier event that brings together high-level decision makers in finance, business, government, civic society to discuss and identify actionable initiatives that mobilize the capital markets for sustainable development. We kicked off our 7th edition this year in Indonesia in June, in Malaysia in July, the Philippines in August, Singapore in September, and now we're very excited to be hosting this in Bangkok, Thailand for the very first time. And we're very honored to have with us today a few special guests. Ms. Michaela Freeberg-Story, UN Resident Coordinator in Thailand, United Nations, and Kun Ponpom Wikitseret, Advisor to Governor of Bangkok and Chief Sustainability Officer of Bangkok. As Thailand is our last stop for this edition of Unlocking Capital for Sustainability, we will be distilling all the insights and case study from today, along with all the other programs that we've hosted across the other geographies, into an insights and action report, which we will share with you all here at the end of this year. So this report will seek to guide decision makers in policy and business well beyond the forum, to keep organizations and decision makers accountable and to raise the level of discourse and really to exchange best practices so that we can all truly take collective action to achieve the shared goals that we have. And of course, this event would not have been possible without the support of our partners. We'd just like to take a minute to acknowledge them. So we have UNEP Finance Initiative. We thank them for their partnership over the years and being the pioneering force catalyzing action across the financial system to align economies with sustainable development. We'd also like to acknowledge our strategic partner, UOB. And last but not least, our outreach partners, Asia Clean Energy Partners and SETA Connect. I'd also like to thank all of you here today with us, our guests and speakers who've joined us here for an afternoon of critical conversation. There'll be some interactive elements throughout the program. There'll be a QR code flashed up, which is a Slido QR code. And we'd really like you all to participate in the Q&A. And we'd really like to try to keep this a two-way conversation so that we can all walk away with fresh ideas and renewed motivations. Our hashtags for the event are hashtag Unlocking Capital for Sustainability and UCFSTH. So if you're on social media or LinkedIn, do tag EcoBusiness, UNEP-FI, and our partners. So we are now excited to officially launch our forum with a special video prepared for all of you. So if I could just get the lights to turn off.
Leaders must lead. No more hesitancy, no more excuses, no more waiting for the others to move first. There is simply no more time for them.
I'd now like to invite Ms. Michaela Freeberg-Story, UN Resident Coordinator in Thailand, United Nations, to deliver her opening keynote. Ms. Michaela, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's a true pleasure to be here. Let me start by acknowledging this very important event, Unlocking Capital for Sustainability. What could be more timely? So, Ms. Megan C., Director of Partnership for Ecobusiness, thank you for bringing us together with all the partners on this very important topic. I'm very glad to be here as the UN Resident Coordinator, and what I will try to do over the next 6 to 15 minutes, not violating the good advice from Martin here on how long we should be talking, I'm going to give you a little bit of a food for thought and also introduce to you some of the work that the UN is doing in Thailand on this very important topic. As the UNRC, I represent the Secretary General, and I just heard his voice in this video, and I represent Antonio Guterres and all of the UN development system in the country. We are 21 UN entities working for Thailand, with Thailand, on sustainable development goals, and as such, on the sufficiency economy philosophy. When you meet here today, you meet at a very, very opportune moment. We have just closed in Baku, COP29, and we had a goal to unlock more than what came through. But the 1.3 trillion climate finance commitment that was in the end made by the member states provides us a platform to build on. As the Secretary General said at the end of COP29, he said, finance has been the priority number one. Countries have delivered, but we had hoped for a more ambitious outcome to meet the challenges we face. But we do see that COP29 was and is a base on which to build, and all of you are at the forefront of bringing this climate promise forward. As you know very, very well, climate change is at the forefront of Thailand's development agenda, and with the fact that Thailand is particularly vulnerable to climate-related risks, and the example we probably all know where agriculture constitutes approximately 9% of the GDP, the country faces severe threats from floodings, from lack of harvest, from water scarcity, or from the very recent and devastating flooding that went through the north of Thailand primarily. At the same time, this beautiful city, Greater Bangkok, and let me also, of course, acknowledge the presence of Kun Pon Prom, the beautiful city of Bangkok, you know better than me the devastating impact of the floodings in 2011. If they were to happen again, with the development of Bangkok since then, the country could lose as much as 10% of its GDP in one go. But the powerful movie showed us some of the elements globally of doom and gloom. But it's not the full true picture. We also have hope. We see that in the political commitment that is actually being made by governments. Thailand's government being one of the lead in this regard. We see it in the commitment that comes from large parts of the private sector, you all here today being part of that positive drive. And a clear result is, of course, that Thailand has advanced its SDG ranking and being first in the ASEAN for 6 consecutive years on what we call the SDG index. This is quite remarkable. 6 years in a row, not once, but 6 years in a row. That indicates that there is institutional ownership, political will, and financing to go with it. Otherwise, you don't make 6 years in a row. You'll get it once, but you're not going to get it 6 times. But we still see that according to the figures that we have in UNESCAP, that we are going to need an additional 410 billion to meet the SDGs on schedules. And that is why it is encouraging to see that Thailand will issue sustainability-linked bonds worth $3.8 billion for the fiscal year of 2025. We need to make sure that these bonds are de facto green, de facto sustainable, and that they will lead to impact on the ground. Private sector is lead here. Knowing that as much as 75% of investments in Thailand comes from private sector and the rest from the public sector, it is the private sector that can unlock sustainable development for Thailand. The government will have to provide the policies. They will have to provide the regulations and the laws. But it is private sector that is going to be the main vehicle for the people of Thailand for their sustainable future. That is why we in the UN are very glad to have such a strong global compact network as we do in Thailand. And for those of you who are not yet members of the UN Global Compact, please let me know and I will certainly facilitate this contact. And if you are already there, thank you very much for your commitment. The Global Compact Network in Thailand today has more than 1 million employees. And the Global Compact Network has recently committed to advancing human capital development for 1 million people to drive the country's green transition. But as we see it in the UN in Thailand, we have 5 key priority areas where we see the engagement of private sector, us as the UN and the government to focus on primarily. And the first such area to catalyze the green economy would be the ESG disclosure. We need to have reliable, comparative ESG data. This is what investors will be looking for. That is why we are so glad to take note of the Securities Exchange Commission 1 report that clearly sets this. And we encourage everyone who engages in this because we need these type of data that are agreed, that are known, and that are measurable. The second element is to have a clear green taxonomy that clearly provides definitions to guide investments into truly green projects. We need to be clear about what we call green, amber, or red activities. It's quite clear for us what the red activities are. Those are the ones we need to stop. The green activities, the ones that we need to do more of. But where we need to really unpack are what we sometimes call the amber or the orange. Those that it will depend on how we measure and what de facto we do, and if we look at the entire chain of causality for determining whether they would end up on the green side or on the red side. Because everything is not black and white when it comes to sustainability. The third element would be the carbon markets. And it was something that was also mentioned here earlier. That is why we are so glad as the United Nations in Thailand that we have formed a partnership with all the 76 provincial governors and Bangkok that has signed on to an MOU to promote sustainable work. We see that this is already producing verified carbon credits and creating incentives for sustainable waste management. This is a key area for Thailand to develop, sustainable waste management. In addition, on this element as it relates to the carbon markets, we have a program that I want to flag, which is called Partnership for Action on Green Economy, known as PAGE. And it is 5 UN entities that are part of this: UNEP, ILO, UNDP, UNIDO, and UNITAR. And if there's any of those acronyms that you're not familiar with, let me know. But this is the UN for you. So it's the environmental program, labor organization, development program, industrial development organization that are coming together. And they support the government to examine carbon pricing, mechanisms for reporting carbon credits, and the knock-on effects for the economy, and specifically for the SMEs. The fourth element we see, therefore, links directly to the SMEs. With 2.6 million SMEs in Thailand, it is vital that these businesses are supported in their transition to do more sustainable practices. And what we see globally is that there is very often a will with the SMEs, but there is a lack of financing and sometimes a lack of knowledge. That is why the partnerships within the Global Compact also looks at bringing on SMEs, not only the biggest actors, to exchange this knowledge base and best practices. The fifth element then would be, of course, the green technology. This is where we need to invest in the grid infrastructure, battery storage, green buildings, the efficient cooling, EVs, which is of course a priority as well. And here the UN is firmly committed to bringing best available technologies at costs that would be financeable. We need bankable programs when it comes to developing these sectors. And we hope that with the commitment from COP, there will be more real deals coming through. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, as the UN, we see Thailand having a potential to lead on sustainability, not only for this region, but far beyond. Because climate crisis that we are facing demands collective action. And when I say collective action, I mean the dialogue and close collaboration between all sectors of society. As the Secretary General said at COP29, climate finance is not charity. It's an investment. Climate action is not optional. It's an imperative. And by unlocking capital for sustainability, we can pave the way for a greener, more resilient, happier, healthier, sustainable Thailand. That is why the work of eco-business and the fact that you're here today builds exactly in that direction. Thank you so much for your engagement and thank you so much for having us here. Thank you.